Hey, everybody. So, I wanted to use this podcast episode to kind of give you some origins about me and how I kind of got into this business of being a parent coach. Um, as you know, obviously, I'm a parent of a child with autism, and my daughter was diagnosed in December of I can't even remember the year. 2014. Gosh, it's been a very long time now, almost 11 years since she's been diagnosed. If you don't know our story, I definitely have talked about that in other podcast episodes. But basically, Juliana had language, and then she lost it, and then we kind of had to teach her, kind of build those skills back up again. We ended up teaching her sign language. She started using sign language. She potty trained with a sign. We ended up teaching her how to make sounds again, then to speak. She went from the most restrictive autism classroom to where she is today. She's thriving, happy. She's about to enter the 7th grade. I can't believe it, a middle schooler. She's going to be 13 this year. She's going to be an official teenager come November. And we're at a point now, if I didn't tell you she was on the spectrum, you probably wouldn't even know it. And to go from where we were to where we are today is nothing short of a miracle. I didn't think that this was the life that we were going to live. And I do talk about that. I have talked about that in the past. And today's podcast episode, I wanted to be more about like an origin story to kind of give you an idea of like how I got into being a coach. And I think, and the reason why I'm talking about this today is because I'm going to be announcing that I am doing my first ever autism parent coach certification. So for anybody who wants to do what I do and help other families, at the end of this month, I'm going to be opening the doors to an application process, and I'm going to be picking the people I'm going to be working directly with to teach them how to do what I do, how to be a parent coach. So if you guys want information on that, you can definitely check out my website, michellebrodgers.com. The information will be there. But before we get into that, I just wanted to kind of think about origins and think about, where we came from. And, I think about the journey we had with Juliana. And as soon as she was diagnosed, I remember going into my office and getting in front of my computer and just trying to search for someone who could guide us, someone who could lead us and tell us exactly what we need to do to make everything all right. I didn't know she would be where she is today. I hoped I could get that, but I didn't know. I didn't even have an example that I knew of back then in my mind of somebody who had autism as maybe as profoundly as she had, and that they're living these amazing, wonderful life that she's living now. I didn't have any examples of that. So I remember kind of feeling like, once she was diagnosed, I felt like we were kind of cast out to sea, that there was really no clear path as to what we need to do next. And it was a super scary time, and I'm sure you guys can relate to that, going through your own experiences with autism. When your child's first diagnosed, it kind of feels like nobody really has an exact path for you. And that's what I was looking for. And I remember going on the internet trying to search for somebody that I thought could help us. And I was even thinking while I was searching, like, how much would I pay to find this person? How much could we afford? Because at that time, when she was diagnosed, we just had Cody. Money was tight. I didn't know what we could afford, but I was thinking in my head what I could magically make happen, like what I could, maybe I could borrow from here, or put this on a credit card. I was thinking like 5,000 or 10,000. If I knew that she was going to be okay, and I had this person that was going to be able to help me, I was just trying to come up with ideas in my head of what I would do to get resourceful to access somebody like that. And then, long story short, I couldn't really find anything. There was nothing like what I offer today for my parents. And so I remember thinking, okay, well, if there isn't anything out there, then we're going to have to figure this out on our own, which we definitely took our lumps and bumps with. But the experience has been amazing. And I think about like origins of, like, when I think of the word origins and I think about where we came from with this, I'm trying to understand how my journey evolved into what it is. So, I would like to assume that the reason why I was so successful in helping Juliana get to where she is today had nothing really to do with knowing what to do, because I definitely took lumps and bumps. I definitely did a lot of things that were wrong, that didn't work, that didn't help move the needle at all. But I'd like to think that the reason why I was able to carve out a path or a process for her, and now what I do for all the families that I work with, is because I had this ability at that point in my life where I had overcome a lot of difficult things. And, my childhood was no picnic. We, overcame a lot of adversity as a child, overcame a lot of adversity as an adult. I was in debt, thousands and thousands of dollars multiple times. I got out of debt both times. There was just a lot of things I had overcome that I think kind of built the person, the identity of the person that you hear talking now, that was just, just so obsessed and possessed to create results for her. So even though I didn't know anything about autism, and I'm not a special needs teacher, and I'm not formally trained in anything, I was well versed and experienced in overcoming obstacles and being a master problem solver. And I think I just applied what I've done in other areas of my life to autism, and that's how we were able to help Juliana get to where she is today. And for a while there, and I've shared this in the past too, I thought up until probably kindergarten that I could cure her of her autism, that if we could work on this and do all the things, that autism would just disappear. And I realize now that that was probably not a clean, good thought, that it was not accurate thought. I realized that kindergarten, we had a situation pop up that said to me in my head, like, oh, okay, it looks like she's going to have age-appropriate problems that any parent is going to deal with, but now we've got a little bit of side of neurodivergence with it. So then it kind of took the wind out of my sails just momentarily, but then I kind of came up with a new thing to believe, which is, what if Juliana could have autism and live an amazing life? You know how I have asthma, and her dad maybe has eczema, and her brother has allergies. She has autism, and everybody has something. And what if it's not something that's going to limit her or define her? And that's kind of the motto that we've been living with ever since. So, when I'm going through this whole process of like thinking about our origin story and thinking about like how I kind of got into doing this work, obviously it was because of her, right? I'm her mother first. And, my number one job, even to this day, I'll always say my number one most important job that God has given me is to be the best parent I can be to these kids. And then, I think about that skill set of like doing what I did to help her overcome the obstacles, to help her, get the skills she needed to live an independent life. And I think about other families' journeys and why was mine so different than others. I don't think the beginnings of our stories are any different. We were all kind of just thrown into the autism club. None of us signed up for it per se. But I always think about like, why did my journey create such amazing growth and momentum, and why aren't other parents experiencing that on their own? And I know I was looking for support. I was definitely looking for guidance. I couldn't find it, so I kind of became it. Definitely took a lot of bruises, bumps and bruises doing it that way, because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know the easiest, smoothest path from point A to point B. I do now because I have a hindsight, right? I have the gift of hindsight. But I think about like a lot of parents that maybe like, I just assumed everybody had this moment, even though we all are so different and we all have different life experience. And I knew all this, like, I know this. I always thought that most parents had that come to Jesus moment that I had, which was, I'm going to die one day, and who's going to care for her when I'm gone. That was kind of like that moment where I kind of snapped out of my bullshit and really jumped into action. And I just assumed that if I had that happen to me, that other parents had that happen to them too. So it was just kind of like interesting, because once when we were first diagnosed in the United States, when you're first diagnosed with autism, if you're diagnosed at a younger age, and Juliana was 2 when she was diagnosed, you spend a year in early intervention. Now, early intervention could technically be a autism classroom placement, or it could be in your home. And for us, it was in our home. So I didn't really have a lot of exposure to what other people thought and did, how they responded to their children being diagnosed with autism when we were first in the club, so to speak. So I just assumed, even though I know everyone's brought up differently and everyone has different experiences, for some reason my brain assumed that everyone had that come to Jesus moment like I did, and they snapped out of their shit and they got out of their way and they figured this out. And when we, as we're in the process of figuring our stuff out, we ended up, doing early intervention from grade age 2 to age 3. And then we ended up going to a special needs preschool placement in an autism class. And that was my first exposure to other families that were quote unquote in the club. And it was a very eye opening experience for me because there was a lot of like, one of the best things, I'll never like regret this part of being here, is that the community is very arms wide open. When somebody new comes into the world of the autism community, I've yet to see anybody not embrace them wholeheartedly. Like, we understand what you're going through. We went through it too. This sucks. We suck. Everything sucks, right? This sucks. Welcome to our community. We understand, and we're going to support you. That rallying, I'll never forget. I think it was humbling, and it was very welcome for me, because I definitely felt like I was on an island with everything. What I didn't love, and what I saw, which surprised me, instead of people like me who are just kind of like, okay, it may be messy, but they get out of their own way. They shake off the diagnosis and what I might think it means, and they just get to work. That I didn't see any of. And I was so shocked at that. I was so surprised at that. And I remember, making friends here and there. We had a Sunday social group, and I had made friends with some moms there. And made some friends with some of the moms I met at this special needs school. And a lot of them just really were in a place, in a mindset where they're accepting of the autism diagnosis and already defining it, even though our kids were really little. So one of them, I remember sitting waiting for our kids to come out Sunday social and talking to one of the moms, and they said something about their kids going in a group home. And I think our kids were like 4 at the time. And I remember just like my head swung back. I'm like, why are you even putting that in the universe? What are we even talking about right now? And there's conversations with a sense of responsibility, but then there's conversations like, what the fuck are we talking about right now? Why are we even like having that conversation about a 4-year-old? And then there was this time where I initiated us all going away for a one night away from the kids and the family. Had the husbands take care of the kids, and we went to a spa in Connecticut. It was fabulous, and we're all in the hot tub, and they were talking about giving their house away to the state. And I remember thinking, man, like, why are we even talking about this right now? Like, what do you mean give your house away to the state? Oh, because there's such a shortage of group homes, Michelle, that, if you do that, then your kid's guaranteed a place to go after you die. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, I didn't even put my brain in that universe, because then I can't be present now to teach her like I intended to teach her before autism came. And it just blew my mind that this is what a lot of people are spending their time on, not problem solving. So, like for us, I mean, listen, I went through my stage of like, what could autism mean for us? All I knew back then was there was a movie in the 80s called Rain Man, and he needed forever care. He was in a group home. And I remember thinking, like, could that be a possibility for us? Yes, but I'd fucking die trying to make it not. And I just thought, maybe there is a time and a place for responsible planning and thinking when our kids are in preschool. I don't think that's that place. And I just feel like a lot more, unfortunately, the way I think and the way I kind of came at it from my perspective was just a lot different than the majority of people out there. And it is kind of sad to see that. So, I had a choice at that moment. I'm around these people. I remember, just to give you guys perspective, when I picked that special education placement, that classroom placement, Juliana was using sign language exclusively, and she wasn't even talking. And we were talking about, will you use the sign language as she comes here? Will you be working on word approximations? What's your path? Is the class, the school trained on this? And she got this coveted spot in a 614. It's the most restrictive environment your kid could be in, right? So she was definitely on the spectrum. She was moderate to severe at that point, and was signing. So I remember thinking, when we picked that classroom, she was signing. By the time she had started that classroom, we picked that classroom, I think in February, she started in September, she was starting to talk. And I remember thinking in my head, like, we weren't just going to be like taking what we could get for progress. We were always pushing and moving the needle. Every time she hit a milestone, her ceiling, that ceiling that we were aiming for now became the floor. I remember a point where she couldn't even say a word. She was just for goldfish. She couldn't say gold. She couldn't say fish. She could only make the sound for goldfish. I have it on video. I'm so glad I captured some of these moments. I'm actually surprised I did, because I know it wasn't a very sexy time for me back then, but I did. And I remember these moments, and had I had any of those thoughts about like thinking about like, oh, gifting my home to the state and estate planning for like, and she was a preschooler, I don't even know where she'd be today, straight up. And I just assumed everybody thought this way. So at that time, I had two avenues I could have walked down. I could walk down the avenue of like, listen, Michelle, just stay in your lane. Let everybody do what they want to do with their kids. You don't got no control over that. Just stay in your lane and focus on your kid, which I did. Or you could speak up and say, you know what, guys, I don't know what's going on here, but I don't know everybody's drinking the Kool-Aid, but we need to stop and think about what is in our control of what we can do now to help our kids, not thinking about that crap later on. And it blew my mind. And I tried very hard to, it would have been, I guess there was a opportunity where I could have said, you know what, Juliana's made amazing progress. I could have kept it to myself, right? I could have just said, listen, I'm doing my part. I can't control how other people show up in the world. I can't control how, I can't control how other people are going to show up in the world. I can't even control how what's going to happen for us. But the only thing I have control over is my daughter. So if I see somebody, not teaching their child, I could easily look away. And I could just say, you know what, just keep your eye on what you're doing. And that probably wouldn't have been a wrong way to think. It wouldn't have, but to me it was, because it felt very selfish to me. If I knew I had something that I thought could help other parents, it hurt me to think about not sharing that with somebody. And it really, I just couldn't do that. I couldn't live in a world where I wasn't sharing what was working for my child with other people. And I guess I was probably considered a half asshole because I always had an opinion about other people's shit, right? But it always came from a place of love. I look at all of these children, whether they're speaking or not, self-harming, in diapers, longer than they should be, right? And all I see is potential. And I am so certain in my bones, because of my experience with my daughter, for all the families that I've helped, there's no child that can't improve. And I remember thinking, I always wanted to own my own business. And I always thought, I love coaching. I love the idea of life coaching and supporting people with their dreams and their goals. And it would have been so easy for me to go and find coaching within my wheelhouse, which could be sales, it could be business, women in business. I could have coached so easily in those sectors and made probably a lot more money than I make now, right? But I always felt a pull towards this. So when I was making the decision in my origin story, this is kind of like a part of my origin story, when I was making the decision that I wanted to be a coach and I wanted to help parents of children with autism, I was debating not doing it. And for a lot of reasons that I still get some heat for, that you shouldn't be charging for it, that if you had if somebody says you have the cure of cancer, you should just give it away for free. And I'm like, is that what happened now? Do the pharmaceutical companies give away cancer treatments for free? I think the incentive of, I don't want to get into a debate about pharmaceutical companies. They're not my favorite people either. But it just seems like, listen, I want to help people and I want to give away as much as I can. But I also want to spend most of my time helping people do something that I feel is the most important work that we could be doing as human beings. Could I have spent time being a business coach or a career coach for women in business? Absolutely. I probably could have made a lot of money at it, probably be really successful at it. But my heart pull, my calling was to do this work. Because I love children so much, and I see the potential in all of them, no matter where they fall on the spectrum, no matter what level they are, no matter how old they are and still in diapers. I believe in their full potential, and I can't think of a better way to spend my time outside of raising my own children. So my number one job, always first and foremost, is a mother to my children, a wife to my husband. My second most important job is what's my calling card leaving on this earth? And is it to be a business coach for women, or is it to help parents of children with autism? Even though that path can get me some, heat and some flack, I still choose it every day. I'll choose it every day until the day I die, because I can't think of something more important than this work. And when Juliana was diagnosed, I remember when she was born, I was so grateful. I thought I was going to have a problem getting pregnant. I thought I was going to have a difficult pregnancy. Everything turned out really beautiful. She was a beautiful, healthy baby. I was so grateful for her, and I thank God every night for her that she was such a fabulous baby, so wonderful. And then when the diagnosis came, I was pissed at God. And I felt like he had wrecked this perfect gift of a child. And I thought that he messed with us, and why would he do this? And I was so angry that he had brought autism into our lives. And then once I kind of got out of my own way, I always say that all us as parents of children on the spectrum go through a grieving process. The grieving process, I always say, is, it's the 5 stages of grief, which is like the denial, the anger, the bargaining, the depression, and the acceptance. I believe that there's a 6th stage of grief that really nobody talks about, which is creation. And you can't get there unless we accept what we have. So it's like, it's not sexy acceptance, that part of the grief process. And you think about, well, what are you grieving? You're grieving that typical childhood you thought you were going to have with this baby that was born, to you. I say that acceptance usually isn't very sexy. It's just like, listen, I didn't sign up for this. It's not right. It doesn't make any sense. It's not fair, but it's what is. And how can I create something beautiful from what is? And that's kind of the stance I've taken with Juliana, and it's probably what's helped me to help her go as far as she has. And I've made peace with this. I don't love it. I never really loved it, but I've made peace with it that it's here. And now when I think about my relationship with God over the years, as I was processing what had happened to us and that this was sent to us, I said, you know what? I do believe he sent this to me for a reason. He sent this to Michelle, the autism mom coach, for a reason. That he knew, because of all the lumps and bumps I had taken in my life in the past, that I was going to figure out how to teach her whatever she needed to learn to be an independent individual. Then she was going to take what she learned and teach other families to do the same for their kids. And I truly believe this is my calling. But I don't think it ends there. Over the last 2 or 3 years, I've been thinking about this journey and how far she's come and how many families I've helped. I've helped hundreds of families in the masterclass, thousands of family on webinars and potty guides, and even on this podcast. We've had thousands and thousands of downloads on this podcast. It's so amazing, right? So if I've just helped one person keep their kid out of a group home, I think I've done a great job. And I know we've already done that and then some, right? So the way I see it is this. I think about, I could do anything. I choose to be here. And a couple of years ago, while I'm running my programs, I have the Champions for Our Children Masterclass. That's a group coaching program where I help parents get their kids potty trained, talking, and stopping problem behaviors. Then I started Next Level Autism about a year or so ago. This is where you go after your kids have the basics, and we teach them all the next level skills they need to thrive, like social skills, conversation skills, riding a bike, going to the dentist. We have a orthodontist appointment next week. I remember a time where I thought I was going to have to sedate her to get her teeth cleaned. And now we're at a point where they're asking her, you have a couple of crooked teeth in the front. You're going to need braces on all your teeth, but would you like us to put a couple of braces on your front teeth to straighten them? And she said yes, knowing that there's going to be discomfort, knowing she's got to sit with her mouth open, knowing that she's already had a palate expander, cavities, filled, teeth removed, and she's doing, it blows my mind, right? And I could just be happy with that and covet it, but I just couldn't. I knew that I just love babies too much. I love the potential that babies represent. I'm so protective of their vulnerability that I want to protect them even when you guys are struggling to do it yourselves. I want to help you to help your babies. And that was always my mission. But about 2 years ago, I've always been very intuitive led. And I think this is one of the things that I'm going to really teach the people who want to become autism coaches like me, is that they need to start to really dial in to hearing their intuition. I think a lot of my coaching for my families, because I'm not formally trained, all the experience I have is raising my daughter. But I'm so intuitive led that it's never steered me wrong with all of the families I've ever worked with my own daughter. I've always been able to help parents go from A to Z. And what happened about a year and a half ago is I started having a thought you know what? Let's just assume this was a God-given journey that I'm on, that he sent autism to us intentionally so I could heal my daughter. Then I could help other families do the same for their kids. About a year and a half ago, it shifted, and I started to feel like now you need to teach other people to do what you do, because I'm not going to be around forever, right? And there's more families out there than I could ever help. There's more of you I get emails every day. I get DMs every day on Instagram and Facebook. There are more people out there than I'll ever be able to help. So my intuition, which I believe is my direct connect to God, is now telling me now you need to start teaching people how to do what you do, because there's so many families that are in need. And that's kind of where I am today. I am on a mission to help as many families as I can. And what better way to help more than I can handle myself than to teach other people to do what I do. And it's one of the best ways you could possibly make a living, because you're helping other families and this is your career and this is your job, and you're going to offer them so much love and support that isn't paid for, and that when you get paid for it, it's going to be so rewarding. And that's what I want this certification to be about. So today's podcast is about origins, is kind of telling you a little bit about how I got into this business, what brought me here. It could have been so easy for me not to even entertain doing anything professionally in this business, but I just knew, like, God, I love children and I love their potential, and I don't believe autism is a gatekeeper to a quality life. I don't, and I need other families to get on board. I got to get on a soapbox and tell everybody to feel that way too. And what's the next best thing to doing that? Teaching other people who want to be coaches, who want to inspire, to do that for other families in the world that I'm not going to be able to reach. I've helped families all over the world. Maybe there's a mom or a special ed teacher or a behaviorist somewhere in another country that would love to coach and don't even know where to start. And I'm just going to go off of what I've taken my lumps and bumps learning to become the autism coach that I have today, and teach other people who want to do this as a career. This is what we're going to be doing. So at the end of this month, on August 18th, we're going to open the applications for either 4 or 5 days for my first ever autism coach certification. And the way this is going to work is it's going to be a certification that's going to last 6 months. So we're going to work together for 6 months. I'm going to take a handful of people who are interested in being a coach. It could be 1, it could be 5, it could be 10. I have no idea because I've never done this before. You guys are going to submit an application, and if you're interested in learning how to do this as a career, I'm going to spend the next 6 months working with you, certifying you, getting you all the tools you need so that you can start your own business coaching parents of children with special needs. And I'm really excited to launch this, and I think about my origins, and I can't believe this is where we are today, but I do believe this is the complete circle of what God intended for me, to bring autism to my life, to heal my girl, take what I learned to help other families, and now if we want to broadcast that, I need to teach other people how to do what I do. And it's such a wild journey. And I'll share one more story with you guys before we wrap today. But if you are interested in finding out more, I have a wait list that's opened up now. You can go to michellebrodgers.com. You go to the Work With Me tab, and you can go to join the wait list that's at the top to be an autism parent coach. And you guys, anyone who's on the wait list, we're going to offer you guys something special. We're going to offer you a founding member price. We're going to offer you some goodies, and you'll be the first applications that will be reviewed come at the end of August to do autism certification with me, which will start in September. So I wanted to share this last story before I leave. So when I finally decided, like, this is what I was going to do, right? I'm going to be a coach. I remember my first client. And I remember putting out a video about our story. So, and I still use this video to this day. I absolutely love it. It's something I'm going to teach my autism coaches. Like, we need you guys to create something that will connect you to your prospective clients. And I created this video, and this mom loved it, and she reached out to me. And she was telling me about her son, and he was 7, and he was in diapers, and he wasn't talking. And I was nervous, because I'm like, sheesh, her kid's a little older than mine. I'm going to show her all the things I did with my daughter, but, I was nervous. I'm human, right? Like, here I am, I'm going to help this lady. I'm going to, she's going to pay me to be her coach over the course of 3 months. Back then I would do private coaching for 3 months, like an hour. It would be like an hour a week for the first 2 months, and then every other week it'd be an hour. So it was almost like, I want to say it was like 4-4. I want to say it was like 4-4, and it might have been like 10 coaching sessions over the course of 3 months, and then email support in between. And I remember her telling me about her son, and I was just really determined that, even though I was scared, and she was my first client, and I don't even know if she knew she was my first client back then, I was really scared, I was nervous, but I'm like, you know what I do know? I do know I'm a problem solver. I do know that whatever money she invests with me, she'll be better off, her and her son will be better off after these 3 months than where they are today. And that I was certain of. And I would give her her money back if I didn't feel that way. So she signed. She became my first client. We ended up potty training her 7-year-old within 2 weeks. By the end of month 1 or month 2, he said mama for the first time. He was 7 years old. And once that happened, I'm like, all right, let's go. Now I know I can help. All right, now I'm not scared anymore. I'm not saying I'm not human and I wasn't nervous, but I knew I was going to serve her. I was gonna over deliver for her. I had no idea that that's what we were going to get out of the end of it. Only thing I had was, I know I'm going to get her better than where she is right now. I know it's going to be whatever we end up doing. She's going to be in such a better place. And it was such an amazing experience, and it just hit the ground running. I was like, that's it. I'm not going back now. We've got it. I'm doing this. And it's exploded to, I've got hundreds of clients now, thousands of families I've touched, and received so many messages and so many, reviews and all that things. And I want other people to be able to do this too. I can't, there's only a certain amount of people that I can handle. Now, the best way to broadcast this. Maybe you're bilingual. Maybe you're in another country. I have a client that's coming on a call with me in an hour because at 6 a.m. her time, because she's in Australia. I want to be able to broadcast the ability to help as many families as possible. And the next best way to do that, I'm going to still coach. I'm still going to have my own program and support, but I want to teach other people to do what I do. And that's what the Autism Parent Coach Certification is going to be all about. And I'm so excited to announce it on this podcast. I'm so happy I was able to share my origin story with you. If you would like information on becoming an autism parent coach like me, just go to my website, michellebrodgers.com. You go to work with me, and right at the top is you can join the wait list. And anyone who's on the wait list is going to get the first opportunity to submit your application. I'm going to read every application myself. I'm going to contact everyone who submits an application. We're going to make a decision, see if this makes sense, if this is the path, if you feel a pull to this like I did. And I want to be your coach. I want to be the person that shows you the way. I'm going to show you everything I've done. I've got so much experience under my belt. I'm so excited to share it. I feel really confident that whoever takes the certification and goes out into the world is going to make it a better place, because you're in it and you're going to be an autism coach like me too. So I hope this was helpful. I hope you appreciated this podcast and you like my origin story. If you want to work with me in any capacity, you can always just reach out to me from my website. But if you're ready to be a parent coach, I'm ready to show you how. Just hit my website and I will speak to you next week. Bye, everyone.